No DQ Galaxy, we are live with a recap of Monday Night Raw for May 13th, 2024, as we continue on the road to the King and Queen of the Ring premium live event. We had more tournament matches on this show, so let's get right into it. We kicked off Monday Night Raw with the former world champion, Drew McIntyre. He stormed to the ring. He's pissed off about CM Punk. The crowd chanted CM Punk. McIntyre said that CM Punk doesn't show up to towns like Greenville, South Carolina. CM Punk only makes the big towns. McIntyre said Punk's biggest trick was looking like a drug addict without actually taking drugs. McIntyre said he doesn't understand how fans keep trusting Punk, and he said that you're stupid if you're a CM Punk fan. McIntyre said eventually he will get his hands on Punk, but he's not going to wait for a guy that might not be cleared for another 20 years. McIntyre said he's turning his attentions to the paper champion, Damian Priest. Priest quickly interrupted, and Priest wanted McIntyre to talk some trash right to his face. McIntyre said that, yes, Damian Priest has an inspirational story. However, he should not be the world champion. Priest responded by saying that Drew McIntyre is delusional, blaming everyone else for his failures, and maybe McIntyre should look in the mirror and blame that asshole. Then Priest brought up how he wanted to cash in on Seth Rollins multiple times, yet McIntyre kept preventing Priest from cashing in the briefcase. And all McIntyre had to do at WrestleMania was leave. But according to Priest, McIntyre had to make CM Punk more important than McIntyre's own wife. And then on top of that, McIntyre got his ass whooped by a one-armed man. Said that, yes, McIntyre will get his shot at the world title once he's cleared from his elbow injury. And that was the segment. Damian Priest took his leave. They set up the match, which, as I've been mentioning for weeks, I expect it to take place at the Clash at the Castle premium live event coming up. I believe it's June 15th, but we got King of the Ring coming up for now. King and Queen of the Ring, I should say. Good opening segment here to set up that title match, which is roughly a month away. No CM Punk, so he, in fact, did not make Greenville, South Carolina. We had footage shown of Shayna Baszler beating Maxine Dupree at a WWE live event over the weekend. Shayna Baszler and Zoey Stark were seen arriving in the building, and there was a confrontation with Damage Control. Then we had our match, Shayna Baszler versus Iyo Sky. Iyo was attacked during her entrance by Shayna Baszler before the match could even get started. Referees came out there, and we eventually got the start of our match. A QR code popped up. We've been seeing these for weeks now, teasing the return of Uncle Howdy. And this time, it was acknowledged on commentary. Pat McAfee brought up how spooky the video was that he saw when he entered the QR code. So they're trying to get people to invest in this. They did not outright suggest that it was Uncle Howdy or even related to Bray Wyatt, but they did acknowledge the QR code this week. Shayna Baszler continued to go after Iyo. She targeted the arm, and then Shayna got knocked off the top rope to the outside. Iyo hit a springboard moonsault to the outside, and then after the commercial break, Iyo went for the over the moonsault, but Shayna got her feet up. She applied the Kirifuda clutch. Iyo countered that into an STF. Baszler got out of that, and then Iyo managed to regain the upper hand and pick up the win with the over the moonsault. Very good match here with the ladies. No surprise that Iyo won. Shayna hasn't really been pushed strongly in quite some time. I figured Iyo would get the win in this one, and now she advances to the Raw final. We had a backstage segment with Damian Priest, Judgment Day, and Carlito. Priest does not want anything to do with Carlito, said Carlito's not welcome back there. He doesn't trust him. And Carlito responded by saying that the most stubborn minds can be changed. We had Chad Gable backstage, upset that Maxine Dupree blew her opportunity and embarrassed Alpha Academy over the weekend, losing to Shayna Baszler. And then Gable announced that it would be Otis versus Sami Zayn to soften up Zayn. And then it would be Tozawa versus Big Bronson Reed. We had Ivy Nile come in there, and Gable told Ivy that she has a lot of potential, but she's been wasting her time with Taylor Not So Swift, a.k.a. Maxine Dupree. I'm enjoying heel Chad Gable. And then we had a backstage interview with Kofi Kingston, talking about wanting to get payback for what Gunther did to his boy, Xavier Woods. Kofi, of course, defeated Rey Mysterio over the weekend in another King of the Ring match. That led to Kofi Kingston versus the Ring General, Gunther. Now, we had a special appearance. She's from South Carolina, so it made sense. Lillian Garcia did the ring announcements for this match. She praised Samantha Irvin, gave her a hug, introduced the competitors, and very good match, as you would expect from these guys. I mean, predictable in the sense that Kofi was never winning this, but still, they had a lengthy match here. Kofi went right after Gunther, was targeting Gunther's knee. Gunther, though, was able to avoid the tip, the trouble in paradise, but Kofi kept going after the leg, came off the top with a leg drop. Gunther kicked out, and then Kofi went for a suicide dive on the outside, but Gunther caught him, applied a Boston Crab on the announce table, and then after the commercial break, Gunther continued to work over Kofi, but was selling his knee. Kofi avoided a flying elbow from the second rope, but then Gunther regained the upper hand, put on a Boston Crab. Kofi managed to get out of that, and then Gunther took Kofi and bended him like a pretzel into the ring post. Gunther then was sent into the ring post, and then Kofi on the outside of the ring hit the tip, the Trouble in Paradise, got back in the ring, and Gunther nearly got counted out, but he did beat the 10 count. And then he hit a power bomb on Kofi. Kofi kicked out. However, Gunther reapplied the Boston Crab, and at this point, Kofi was done. Kofi tapped out. Very good match here. Gunther now advances to the Raw final. I love the 10 count. That was a good spot for Kofi, you know, maybe to suspend disbelief, and maybe for a moment you thought, well, perhaps Kofi will win via count out. I thought that was well done. Very solid match. King of the Ring has actually been high quality, and the Queen of the Ring has been good too. We had Lyra Valkyria interviewed backstage, said that Damage Control better get used to seeing her on Monday nights. The women's champion, Becky Lynch, came in, thanked Lyra for having her back, and then Liv Morgan came in, asked Lyra if Becky has always been such a bitch, and then Becky was right behind Liv, and Becky slapped Liv Morgan. More on that in just a few moments. We had Awesome Truth backstage with Adam Pearce and Kiana James making an appearance. She's one of the new members of the Raw roster coming off of the draft. And then we had Karrion Kross backstage telling Kofi Kingston, tough loss. And there's always time to turn things around, he said. And then Xavier Woods brought some ice for Kofi. Not really sure how I feel about Karrion Kross's group versus New Day. I'm like whatever at this point. We had Big Bronson Reed versus Tozawa. Chad Gable is out there. Tozawa got in a little bit of offense, was using his speed, but then he came off the top and got caught by Reed. Reed hit the DVD, the Death Valley Driver, and then picked up the win with the Tsunami. Chad Gable, as you can imagine, was very upset about this. We had Ludwig Kaiser backstage talking about potential opponents for Gunther coming up in the King of the Ring, and also brought up Sheamus and said that Sheamus is delusional if he thinks Kaiser cost him the match. And if anything, Kaiser said Sheamus should be thanking him for saving him. We then had New Catch Republic backstage with Adam Pearce, and they set up a 4-way tag team match to determine number 1 contenders for the tag team titles on Raw. And then Braun Breaker approached Adam Pearce and said that he would have taken care of everybody in the tournament. They all would have drowned, and he should have been in the tournament. Pearce was like, it was all about having participants that earned it at the highest level. And I guess his reason is that since Braun Breaker is a newcomer, he wasn't qualified to be in the tournament, even though Dragunov was in the tournament. So really doesn't make any sense. It almost feels like Triple H and company don't really know what to do with Braun right now. I would just have him go out there and do some squash matches, but doesn't seem like they have a good slot for him at this point, and they're just killing time trying to figure out something for him. We had Zoey Stark versus Lyra Valkyria. It was a solid match, but it was probably the weakest tournament match of the show. The crowd just doesn't care that much about Zoey Stark. I like her music, but for whatever reason, the crowd's just not making much noise for her. It was back and forth, and Zoey went for the Z360, but Lyra countered it with the Nightwing and got the 1-2-3 victory. Again, another predictable match. Lyra's the one they're pushing right now. Zoey, I'm even surprised Zoey made it as far as she did. Seems like the crowd is liking Lyra so far, and she's been aligned with Becky Lynch, so that could definitely help her. She advances, and then we had Sami Zayn versus Otis. Chad Gable was out there once again. Otis did a big splash in the corner, and then he teased going for the worm. And Pat McAfee was very excited about this. He was telling Otis to bust out your worm, and Chad Gable, of course, was not happy about this. Otis did hit the worm, the caterpillar, whatever you want to call it. And then he went up top going for the Vader bomb, but Sami Zayn avoided it. hit the haluva kick, and got the 1-2-3 victory. And then afterwards, Chad Gable yelled at Otis. Sami Zayn gave Gable an exploder and went for the haluva kick, but Gable was able to slip out of the ring, and Gable continued to yell at Otis, and then Gable slapped Otis across the face. Crowd was actually very engaged in this segment. He really wanted to see Otis, or they really wanted to see Otis snap and beat the crap out of Chad Gable. So, this was a very entertaining segment. Not much of a match here, more of an angle, but I'm looking forward to the eventual split between Otis and Chad Gable. And they did announce they announced a singles match for next week, Sami Zayn versus Chad Gable. Little surprised they're not doing it as a premium live event match, but they do have that triple threat coming up at King and Queen of the Ring. We had Braun Strowman backstage, another guy who seems like he's like stuck in this area, like limbo, where they don't really have a slot for him. He was backstage praising the Creeds and Ivy Nile. And then JD McDonough said they don't appreciate Strowman getting in their business, and Strowman should consider himself warned. So maybe they do have something for Strowman. Maybe it's going to be Strowman versus Judgment Day. And what about Dijak? Dijak got drafted to Raw. We haven't really seen anything from him in several weeks. Maybe he joins Judgment Day. We'll have to wait and see. We had Becky Lynch versus Dakota Kai with Damage Control at ringside. And it was back and forth here. You had some interference from Damage Control. Iyo got on the apron. Becky took her down, went to the top, but Dakota Kai kicked Becky, knocked her off, got the upper hand. And then after the commercial break, crowd was chanting for Becky. Becky built up momentum, but Dakota was able to avoid the manhandle slam. They traded near falls. Becky applied the disarm her, but then Damage Control came in, attacked Becky Lynch for the disqualification. So yeah, they did a DQ finish here, and then Lyra Valkyria ran down and made the save. And Liv Morgan then showed up and took a cheap shot at Becky Lynch, threw her into the ring post, and then fled the scene. It was fine. They did the DQ. They did the angle with Liv, so it was all right. We had Ilya Dragunov interviewed backstage, talked about wanting to make an impact, and he said he was going to become the czar of the ring. Brought up how he did beat Gunther back in NXT, but then Gunther came right up next to him, smiled at Dragunov, and then walked off. We got a little tease for that. They had some really great matches in NXT, considered to be among the best WWE matches of all time. So the question is, when would this rematch take place? More on that in a few moments. We had a fatal four-way tag team match to determine the tag team titles. We had JD McDumbass, or JD McDumma, as Michael Cole said, and then Pat McAfee was like, well, did you call him JD McDumbass? I kind of like it. JD McDonough and Finn Balor, Judgment Day, against the Creed brothers, against the Banana Republic, Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne, and then AOPP. AOPP came in, cleaned house, and then Pete Dunne got slammed onto Tyler Bate, and then JD McDumbass was tossed by AOPP over the top rope onto everybody. After the commercial break, the Creed brothers started to build up some momentum. And then Julius hit a big superplex to Balor, but Balor kicked out. AOPP tagged back in, and they double power bombed Judgment Day. Brutus then showed a lot of strength, picked up Akam with a back suplex. Then Brutus delivered the Brutus ball to several people on the outside of the ring. And then Tyler Bate showed off his strength. He picked up Akam and delivered an airplane spin, got a big pop from the crowd. But then all of a sudden, Carlito showed up and saved Judgment Day. He gave Pete Dunne a backstabber on the announce table, threw him back in the ring. Finn Balor finished off Pete Dunne with the coup de grace. And now Judgment Day gets one more opportunity at Awesome Truth. I hope Awesome Truth wins here. I'm not really a fan of Judgment Day getting the tag titles back at this point. I would prefer either Creeds or, I hate to say it because I feel like the act is kind of dead, but AOPP could use the titles. I mean, just something different, not Judgment Day at this point. So yeah, I hope we get to see Awesome Truth retain here and they could beat JD McDumbass. Backstage, Ricochet gave props to Ilja Dragunov, but said next time the outcome will be different. Dragunov beat Ricochet last week, and Ricochet did wish Dragunov well. And then we had another backstage segment with Judgment Day. Carlito was there, but said he's not wanted, so he started to leave. But then Priest said what happened out there, that was cool. And he talked about Rey Mysterio and told Carlito to not let him down, take care of Rey Mysterio. And also, Priest asked Dominic if everything was good between him and Rhea Ripley. But before Dom could really answer it, we had all the other guys coming into the camera shot. So the plot is slow building with that one. I expect Liv Morgan to eventually end up with Dominic, and that'll set up Rhea Ripley coming back as a babyface. And then we had our main event of the evening, Jey Uso versus Ilja Dragunov. Crowd was into both guys, but more so Jey. The Jey Uso has reached the next level with the cell phones, everybody yeeting with the phones. It's quite the spectacle. Very good main event here, as you would expect with these guys. They brought on the outside. Dragunov cleared the table, put Jey on it, went for the H-bomb, but missed and hit the table. And then Jey speared Dragunov over the announce table. After the commercial break, they traded shots. Dragunov hit the Constantine special, but Jey was able to kick out of that. And then Jey regained control, hit a super kick, but then Dragunov countered the spear, hit an H-bomb in the ring. Jey Uso kicked out of that. And then Dragunov went for Torpedo Moscow, but instead, Jey got to him first with the spear. 1, 2, 3 with the Uso splash. I'm actually not surprised that Dragunov lost. I think I mentioned this last week that if you're going to do Gunther versus Dragunov again on the main roster, and they did tease it, so I mean, it's coming eventually. I think you got to have that at a premium live event. That should not be thrown out on a random episode of Raw. Save that for a premium live event. And yeah, right now Jay's hot, and Dragunov will be okay. He's the so-called rookie, so he'll be all right. And it was a competitive match, but Jay's the bigger star. Jay's more established, so I'm fine with it. Jay picks up the win. And then afterwards, Gunther came down, looked over at Dragunov, so they did another little tease. And then Gunther got in the ring and had a little stare down with Jey Uso. So all in all, I think Raw was another very solid show. The wrestling has definitely been high quality the last couple of weeks. Leading up to the King and Queen of the Ring pay-per-view. A little light on the soap opera stuff that I personally like. But the wrestling has definitely stepped up over the last several weeks, and this has been a very good tournament. I give Raw another solid B. I gave it a B last week. I give it a B again this week. Raw's been enjoyable, and definitely they've done a good job with giving these guys time and making the tournament feel like it's something special. I still want them to like announce that, hey, the winners of these tournaments are going to get like SummerSlam title shots, or some point in time they're going to get a premium live event title match. Like, there's got to be like a good reward for winning the tournaments. Like, there's got to be more than just, oh, they get a crown and all that stuff. Like, there's got to be like a guaranteed world title match at a major show. That's what I think it needs. And I also miss the one night tournaments, as I always say. But as far as tournaments go, I do think this has been one of the better WWE tournaments in quite some time. Anyways, B show, good Raw. I enjoyed it. And if you're a fan of the wrestling heavy shows, then you would definitely like this Raw. Tournament matches, especially the main event, were worth checking out. That's it, everyone. Thank you all for tuning in. Stay tuned to NoDQ.com for the very latest news and rumors. And I will see you all next time. Buy a shirt, NoDQ.com/merch. Take care, everybody.